Good morning, my friends. Please join me in turning off your great distractor. Come on now. She keeps telling me she's listening. I just wanted to turn off. Go away. She says, go away.
Goodbye would be more polite.
Goodbye would be more polite. No, here it goes. Here it goes. I was pushing the wrong button. Duh. Okay. Yay. How delightful. We survived fully into September. It's good. I do wish you could all sit here and see what I see. It's a beautiful sight to be able to look out. Some of you have known for 40 years, 30 years. That one, Doug Pullen, for a long time. Thank you nice to see you this morning. Doug is one of our teachers here. We also have Gregory. Are you doing consults today? Gregory's doing consults afterwards, and Jim's kind of a regular. He's here doing the movement and teaching in Beaverton on Tuesday nights. Tuesdays still. No, Mondays changed. Changed after 22 years too. It's hard to change. Everything's impermanent. We're going to speak of that today. So, I invite you to take a moment to reflect upon something that's happened in your lifetime that you look upon as a great blessing, one of the great delights of your lifetime. And unless it's completely the wrong moment to do so, in which case just put your hand on your heart, but to turn to a neighbor and share with them your name, and also this blessed event or wonderful discovery or whatever it is, whatever leaps to mind as something that's really made this lifetime extraordinary or wonderful. So, please do that. You will, those of you that are on the listserv, very soon receive an invitation for October the 15th, Saturday, which is a 4-hour workshop retreat on the topic of taking refuge, what that really means, and preparing, I guess, really for the Sunday, the 16th, where we'll have a refuge ceremony. You don't have to do, obviously, in a way, the retreat to do the refuge taking, but I invite you to consider doing both. Of course, as it is with such things, as I've been preparing for it, I've been recognizing what a wonderful opportunity it is for us. And the practicality of taking refuge in the Buddha, in being awake, when the difficulties of life come along, when the losses emerge, or when the disappointments come out, or when we're simply lost in a difficult mood. Where else to take refuge other than in consciousness and being aware? So I invite you to join me in singing this little song. It's the Three Refuges, the Three Treasures, a version done by Betsy Rose. And we'll sing it through twice. I take refuge in the Buddha. What does that mean? Well, there's the historical Buddha. There's the quality within us, which is the Buddha. We're waking up the Buddha. That's what we're here to do this morning, is to remember who we are really. Refuge in the Dharma is in the teachings and in the way things actually are. It's such a relief. I've seen countless people over the years. Just a little internal insight. I just noticed I was rushing. Why would I rush here? Habit. So, refuge in the Buddha, a refuge in the Dharma, in the teachings, and in the way things are. And what a difference if during this next 2 hours, our meditative purpose is to realize what is, rather than to make something different. Right? If this isn't 2 hours of self-improvement, but instead it's 2 hours of self-discovery, then all we have to do is click on the curiosity and the awareness, and this nature, the universe, reveals itself. So it's turning on the scientific method, actually. And then the third refuge, the refuge in Sangha, we're the living edge of humanity right now. We've spent a long time, more than 100,000 years more, developing culture, developing the qualities of knowing somewhat how to get along with each other. And an eye blink ago came the Buddha. An eye blink, a mere 2,500 years. It's 120, 150 generations, actually, is all it is. And he had an experience of such magnitude and such clarity to him that he knew how to teach people how to have that experience. And then that's been passed down, student to teacher, teacher to student, all these years. And so that's a nice place to take refuge. We can take refuge in the fact that there's this lineage of human beings who've brought us freedom, happiness, relief. And then there's this taking refuge in our community of practice, which is rather unstable, of course, because you never know. But so I invite you to join me in this little ditty that has such a wonderful history. I think I'll stand. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. From the top, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. That's called a wandering mind. I take refuge in the Sangha, the Dharma, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Sangha, I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya, Namo Sangaya. Best not to be attached to perfection. How funny. I got a little cocky. I looked up. How funny. Embarrassment. Well. Ajahn Sumedho, the elder teacher in the Thai forest tradition, elder Westerner, told a story about himself that early in his practice, a couple or 3 years, I guess, into his monastic practice, Ajahn Chah asked him to give a talk in the evening. And he worked on it and worked on it and worked on it and got it all really together. And he gave this very polished talk. And then Ajahn Chah said, give another. And he gave another. And then he said, give another. And he did this deep into the night until Ajahn Sumedho had run out of everything to say he possibly could, until he failed. And Ajahn Chah said afterwards, don't let me ever see you give a talk like that first one you did again. Because he was out of touch completely with the community giving a talk. He wasn't in communion. That's a very standard thing in the Thai forest tradition, that their talks are connected. And they'll go off script even. So, sitting. If the eyes are open, please notice that seeing is happening. Most certainly you can feel the contact of your body with the cushion or the chair. Some of you have a chair back, you can notice where you're leaning. In the Buddhist psychology, or the Buddhist understanding of reality, we have the usual 5 sense doors, 5 ways of knowing about reality, 5 ways of orienting to the world. But the Buddhists add a 6th, which is the mind. And this is done with the intention of observing the mind with the same kind of objectivity that we might observe seeing or hearing or touching. So, is there a mood present this morning? Moods tend to color everything. Is the mood pleasant, unpleasant, or indeterminate? And there's a liberating question we can ask ourselves about mood. Is this mood me? Is it mine? And if we are to observe mood, it's to observe it directly, not as a description, but that mysterious way awareness can be totally intimate with a euphoric mood or a less than euphoric, the opposite perhaps, maybe depressed, maybe anxious, maybe joyful, maybe very full of love or compassion. And it's a similar contemplation to notice, what is my attitude toward practice right now? Is there some desperation or drivenness, or is it really accepting and loving? And it's not that we have to change it, but simply to notice how it is. The seeing is the doing. And we can take up the time-honored, taught by the Buddha practice of awareness of the body sitting. And within the context of this body, there's breathing. And so we can mysteriously bring awareness to breathing in and breathing out, to the sensations in the body. And the breath doesn't need help. It doesn't need to be controlled or improved upon. Just let it be. Let it do its own breathing. And breathing, as with every other phenomenon and experience this side of the Big Bang, has a remarkable characteristic of beginning and ending. Having the intention to come home to the sensations of breathing makes it really obvious when the mind falls into trances, into the wandering mind, into the past and future, into fantasy, into greed, into fear, into anger, into restlessness and sloth and torpor. If we're practicing with the intention of awakening to reality, then we use breath as a kind of beacon, kind of orientation spot. And then everything else that happens is something of great curiosity. I'm going to be speaking today about the Kalamas dilemma. Who to believe and how to go about exploring our spiritual practice safely or with aliveness. We're doing that right here. We could form an hypothesis, a question. Does it change this consciousness and my experience in the direction of ease, comfort, happiness? To sit for a while and have the intention of coming home to breathing. Does noticing when the mind wanders, perhaps to subjects of desire or aversion, does noticing them lead me in a helpful direction? For instance, if I awaken to an angry thought, a rumination, a plan, and then cease to follow it, cease to practice it, does that lead to my happiness or my unhappiness? If I find a thought which is loving or generous or kind, if I discover that and decide to perhaps strengthen it, or in keeping with insight practice, to let go of it, come back to the breath. Does that conduce to my happiness or my unhappiness? Taking a moment to sense into the mood which is present for you right now, and the general sense of well-being. Would you say you are more toward well-being than the other way? Raise your hand if that's true. Take a moment to look around. So would we decide, I think we would, the experiment of sitting in this room, doesn't have to be, but these are the characteristics right now, sitting in this room with a little guidance, practicing awareness and concentration, using the breath as a home base, observing the mind when it wanders, in fact, does lead to a sense of well-being. So one could say, if one then checked that a few dozen times and checked it against the scriptures and checked it with friends, you could discover, or you could decide, this is a worthy teaching. This is a worthy practice because it works. Then we could say, well, does it lead to my behaving more skillfully with my loved ones? Is it good for them? Well, that's probably true. Well, we'd experiment. And then does it lead to my behaving more skillfully in the world and my interactions with other people? So it begins to add up that it's a worthy teaching because of our personal experimentation. Not taking, I'll go into all the various criteria, not taking anyone's word for it, but also not being willing to receive instruction or learn from the descending ritual of the teachings. It's a both and. So, Mr. Jim, would you be so kind as to do some movement with the group? Oh, look. Let's change the battery now.
Robert told me to do it perfectly. Flawlessly. So here we go. We're in touch with our feet. We're in touch with our breath. We can turn our bodies and look to one side and look to another. Just feeling all the complexity of the hips. What do the hips have to do in order for us to turn? And then pausing. What happens if we just move our head to the one side and then come back to the other? What does our neck have to do if we say, I'd like to turn to the side? So all kinds of sensations. there's all this complexity and intelligence in the body. And we walk around several feet from it most of the time. Our minds are out there somewhere, or way back there somewhere. But right here, there's this incredible complexity. So, part of this complexity is knees. They bend. And they can straighten up, but not tight. Don't lock them. And just feel the flexibility and the softness in the knees. And what I just noticed is I can't start moving the knees without stretching my fingers and starting to explore with my hands too. It's really, movement starts movement. One movement leads to another. So we're going to sink and then rise up. And release down. Release the breath, release the position of the arms. One movement leads to another. So we have this universe of impermanence, but it's not particularly problematic. Sometimes the impermanence leads to further delight. The intelligence of the body, making round, soft movements, lifting, opening, back to the center, and sinking. And then noticing other people around us doing the same thing. A harmony of movement. So one movement leads to another inside this body, and one movement leads to another out there somewhere. Let's go overhead. Paint a rainbow. As soon as I say the word rainbow, the imagination of a whole bunch of people lights up. And then reaching up, we'll separate clouds. And again, an image in the mind leads to a movement, leads to a movement, leads to a movement, and we've separated clouds. One impermanent movement unfolding. Sometimes it's described as self-liberating. Are we attached to this second, this microsecond? That's open to the side. Are we attached to our palms up? Can we turn one forward and then turn it up, turn the other forward? It's easy to let go when we're in this flow. Why isn't that true of my mental state most of the time? So impermanence isn't always dukkha. Dropping back. Leaving that gesture behind, we discover a new one. Present with this sensation, straightening the knees, sinking. Lifting across and noticing how one leg can balance the whole form. And release that and find it on the other side. How did this body learn this intelligence? How many times did we practice as little kids, as infants, lifting an arm and knowing when to stop? Turning to gaze at the moon. I've had quite a run the last week, gazing at the moon. Lots of delight. And each night it was a different size, impermanent. When you get a chance, look up David White's poem on faith. Push across, stretch out to one corner, push to the other corner. Again, the weight is shifting, but we're not tipping over. The body knows how to maintain balance, even though there's sort of an extreme distribution of weight. So let's do something more flowing and easy. Lifting one arm up, facing the other palm towards the floor. We come across the midline until we are facing the other corner, and then we change hands, and the upper hand's like a cloud drifting across the sky with a shadow following underneath. Then we switch positions, but the same concept, the same form carries us across, flowing in the other direction. And keeping our eyes on the palm of the hand calms the mind. Concentration brings its own delight. I know there's more movements to this routine, but I don't want to leave this one. Okay. The school teacher in me has to say, what's next? All right. Step outside. Step a little bit and splash in the sea and then open the arms. If I don't do all the gestures, it won't be flawless. It won't be perfect. And ride the waves. And open the arms. And there's a delight in the ear, in the hearing. There wouldn't be any delight unless it was an impermanent sound. It starts, and then it ends, and then it starts again. Riding the waves. Opening the arms. And come back to the center. Find the feet under the shoulders again. Softening the knees, making a fist. We'll let the dragon rise from the sea. No attachment to this gesture because it opens the door for this one. An open heart greets this practice. It's not a constricted heart. We're open to the next. Up on the heels, or up on the toes and lifting the heels, we soar with the cranes. I just lost my flawless rating. All right, now we'll turn the wheel. Large movements, lots of subtle changes. What's a circle? A whole bunch of different sensations. And then we'll change the direction, turn the wheel. And back to the center, finding that balance again. Lift one arm and one leg. My sisters used to play a ball game like this. They would lift their leg and bounce the ball under their leg. I don't think kids do that anymore. Different generation. There's no app for this. Lift. And then letting the arms rest, keeping the knees soft, keeping the shoulders back. The breath can come easily. There are no more gestures in our routine unless you consider no gesture part of it. Where can we find the impermanence in no gesture? There's the breath as a beginning. If you will arbitrarily mark it as the beginning of the in-breath, there's a transition. There's a beginning of the out-breath, and then a coming to a close, settling down, releasing. Knowing we're empty, we begin again. But that's just part of the awareness of sensations. In no gesture, it's not true that there's no sensations. It's not true that there's no mood. And a mood is not a thing. It's a flow. So some of us have discovered a mood of pleasant release from the gestures, opening joints, getting more circulation through the body, more depth to the breathing. Others have been reminded of old injuries that won't let go. Reminded of aging and how I used to do this a lot easier and all that kind of stuff. And some of us may have received news recently that rushes back in as soon as we get still, when there's no gesture to distract us. One of my relatives had a minor stroke yesterday. So whenever I get still, attachment, concern, love, compassion all rise up in quick succession. Then I have to remind myself, I'm standing here, I'm breathing. I'm sorry she's suffering. I love her. And I'm thankful she's been part of my life for 70 years. So then I open my arms and gather all these sensations, all these feelings, all these thoughts, bring them down, organize them into one gathering of awareness, knowing that the same is going on in all these other bodies and minds around me. Thank you for your attention. Oh, and I guess I should give a commercial for 2 weeks from now. There's going to be a workshop here in Qigong and meditation from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock on Saturday, the 24th.
Is that your Qigong?
Yeah.
Jim, you're in a different place. That just confuses me. Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. My name is Kate. Hi, Had, with the news the day, updates. We're working real hard on getting that new listserv in place so that those of you who would like to be part of the listserv community don't have to deal with our Yahoo list, which is difficult. We have so much going on, it's just silly. Our children's program started back up today. It's so cool. They're all back there. Kempo Sawang, I mess up the name. Had, can you say his name? Sawang Donegal, is that it? Dongle? I can't. Yeah, we'll be here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. For the third year in a row, and we're delighted. He's wonderful. Next Sunday, we're going to do our volunteer fair. So if you volunteer or if you're interested in volunteering, we're going to be setting up in here right after the Dharma talk. Please come and just check it out. If you have questions, ask your questions, and we could really use your help. Friday, September 3rd, Barney Wong is going to be talking about the Tao, which is a really fascinating subject. September 23rd. Right before your Qigong on the 24th. Doug Pullen's Basics of Mindfulness class starts September 22nd. Is that right, Doug? Robert has a retreat at Hollyhock on October 2nd. And Robert was discussing the Taking Refuge retreat, which is really exciting, on October 15th, and that is a half-day retreat. Christine and Gregory's here today. They are starting their class. It's a 10-week class on the Noble Eightfold Path, which is a really important element of the Buddha's teachings. It's the map, it's the framework, and so having time to really go deep into the subject is a wonderful opportunity. On October 23rd, we are going to have a community meeting. So we'll be going over how we're doing as an organization, and I'm really looking forward to that opportunity, and that will be after the Dharma talk. Brighton Bush Retreat with Robert is October 30th, starts October 30th, and most of this is on the website. The Taking Refuge Retreat is not yet, but it should be forthwith. It's getting close. Had, you wanted to say something about the library?
Yes, I wanted to announce that the Dharma is finally in sync with the Matrix. Meditation 7
Uh-oh.
You can get a copy.
Just say hello.
Hello.
The reason we ask you to do that with the microphone is that people out on the internet can't hear well at all. And of course, it does help anybody who's using a hearing assisted device here as well. Thank you, Had. We are, as many of you know, have been operating at a shortfall each month. And I'd really like you to think about what this community means to you. It's so very important that you reflect on it. Each one of you will always decide what it means to you and how you want to show your participation and your love of the Dharma. There are lots of ways to do it. You can do it by volunteering, and you can do it by putting in a one-time donation at the box at the back of the room, or we'd certainly love to have you join our stewardship circle, which is our group of people who dedicate a given amount on a monthly basis. Whatever you choose, it will do you good, it will do us good, and we all love you. Robert talks to people for half-hour consultations, and if you would like to have a free 30-minute consultation, please call me. My name is Kate, again, and my contact information is on the website. I think that's all I have, Robert. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the community? Oh, it's potluck today. If you didn't bring anything, come back anyway. There's soup, there's cheesecake. Okay, it's all yours, Robert.
Sunday, September the 11th, 2016. The Kalamas dilemma. I've determined to not do any more audio recordings without that at the beginning because of the toil of trying to figure out when and where. I know where I was 15 years ago. May we as individuals and as the fantasy structure of a nation remember that hatred is never healed through hatred, only through love. The Kalamas dilemma. I heard about the Kalamas dilemma back in my first retreat with Goenkaji in India in 1971. Who shall we believe? Who shall we follow? What teachings shall we devote our life, our precious life energy to? I'm in debate. I'm going to actually read the Kalamas dilemma, the sutra to you, but there's a couple of other pieces I want to bring in. Maybe start with this. After my first retreat, I traveled around some more, and I went to Sri Lanka. And in Sri Lanka, I went to visit an old monk in the woods. It turned out that it was Nyanaponika Thera who wrote The Heart of Buddhist Meditation, one of the great translator, amazing monks of the last generation. On his desk was a little booklet, a little gray booklet with epigrams and little hand-drawn pictures. Turned out the pictures were drawn by Julie Wester, some of you know perhaps as a Spirit Rock teacher. And the epigrams were from the Buddha, but through a guy called Sujata. And Sujata was a small-time guru who was situated in Santa Cruz. And that book sat on my desk. I was going to Toronto to do a master's in environmental studies. And all that year, as I tried to find some Buddhist practice in Toronto, of which there was none, that little booklet kept inspiring me. So I called, and it turned out that they offered meditation retreats. And I went the next summer and did 2 months of meditation with this fellow called Sujata, into whose thrall I fell, and he became a cult leader style guru for me for the next 5 years. I had lived in Europe a couple of years. I went to Europe on his behalf and set up a lecture tour in 10 cities: London, Paris, Berlin, Milano, Frankfurt. And he then, a few months later, came over and proceeded to zap every one of my friends, all the people that I knew and liked and that had agreed to, because they liked me, to bring him. And he had a gift. A gift, kind of a curse in a way. He'd done some meditation. He'd done a couple of 3 years of practice in Sri Lanka. His teacher had told him, "Don't leave now, you're not cooked." But he came. And he could go around a group of maybe 15 to 20 people, and without meeting them before, and say something to each person that would poke their button in such a way that they would be hurt. And those of us that were naively looking for some guru who had the answer would interpret it, "Wow, look at that, he's pointing out my ego." People who were more streetwise or wiser said, "This guy's really dangerous, I'm out of here." So it cost me all my European friends, because I betrayed them all, one by one, each city. When he zapped them, I said, "Oh, it's for your own good. You really..." So I proceeded to spend 5 years in service to him. I learned a lot. I started teaching because of that, the very beginnings, and later on I learned how his teaching was 5 degrees off, or 10 degrees off center, and problematic. I later learned, as I got some clinical training, that he suffered from a card-carrying DSM-5 narcissistic personality disorder. And he was it. I mean, he was perfect for that. And I was very vulnerable. Someone asked, he's not here, the gentleman is not here, when was it that I got over wanting to eat the food of the guru? Some of you are here. And I got over that when I realized that no one else had the answer. And that no one else can do it for me. That the answer is this. The answer is this experience, is the experience in this person. And there are people who are experts who have devoted their lives to this practice, but they can't do a thing to help me. They can't reach in with a wand, or they can't somehow magically free me. I free me. It's my practice and my study and my ethical behavior and my cleaning up my addictive and compulsive processes and my learning how to speak more kindly and my working in psychotherapy for my own health and so on. It's my acts of generosity. It doesn't come from outside. But wouldn't we like it if it did? Oh, look, it's a red one. I think this will do it. No. or this guru or this retreat or this workshop, this person will do it. I can surrender my autonomy and let daddy or mommy, I'll let them do it because they know. And they may well know for them, and they may well know the path, but ever since the time of the Buddha, the teaching has been each person must walk the path. Even the Buddha with his brilliance could only tell people, try this. I watched a very interesting documentary that I heartily recommend. Very interesting. This fellow is very similar to my guru, Sujata. The documentary is called Holy Hell. Have any of you seen it? This guy's onto the radar now. CNN had a thing about him. It's a guy, his name was Andreas. He's now calling himself Reiji, meaning God King, and he's in Hawaii. And that movie could be a really good inoculation for you about what it can be like and how much harm can be done. So, if no one can do it for us, what will our relationship be to the teachings and to teachers? This is not a new question. It was a question back 2,500 years ago when the Buddha was traveling around teaching. Try to remember to come back to this, and then I'm going to just share the Kalamas Sutra with you. Yeah. I'm going to read the preface, which is from, this is from Access to Insight. The instruction of the Kalamas is justly famous for its encouragement of free inquiry. The spirit of the sutra signifies a teaching that is exempt from fanaticism, bigotry, dogmatism, and intolerance. The reasonableness of the Dharma, the Buddha's teaching, is chiefly evident in its welcoming, careful examination at all stages of the path to awakening. Indeed, the whole course of training for wisdom, culminating in the purity of the consummate one, the Arahat, fully awakened being, is intimately bound up with the examination and analysis of things internal. The eye and visible objects, the ear and sounds, the nose and smells, the tongue and tastes, the body and tactile impressions, the mind and ideas. Since all phenomena must be correctly understood in the field of Dharma, insight is operative throughout. In this sutra, it is active in rejecting the bad and adopting the good way. I think I'll skip that. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. The teachings were passed down for almost 400 years orally before they were written. And interestingly, they were written, finally, in Sinhala in Sri Lanka. Right? The Buddha taught in North India, northeastern India, and then the teaching spread, and then it was Emperor Ashoka Emperor Ashoka was the first person to dominate all of India. India is to this day a collection of cultures wanting to split apart. The Hindustan Times is published in 26 languages and 6 scripts, I think. Imagine, and we think of ourselves as a melting pot. So anyway, it was the son and daughter of Ashoka that took Buddhism to Sri Lanka. And so then, many years after, what I'm trying to get to is many years, a couple of 300 years at least after the Buddha died, the teachings were written down in Sri Lanka, in Sinhala, on palm leaves. They were young palm leaves, and they scratched them with a stylus, and that would endure. And then those were tied together, and then they were stored in baskets, hence the 3 baskets, the Tripitaka of Buddhism. They then came back to India and were translated into Pali and Sanskrit and all the other Indian languages. So what we have is a remarkable transmission, but it's a transmission that might give us pause, that we might, it's like, here's the sutras, here's the teachings, they're from the Buddha, but can we quite trust it? Can we take it as, yes, this is what the Buddha said, which is what most traditions do, right? And actually most Buddhists do. It's in the book. And since it's in the book, and the book was written by God, or by the Buddha, therefore we must hold to it tightly. That's not what the Kalamas Sutra suggests. It suggests the book is important and these descending teachings are really valuable, but we must test them. So this is the oral tradition in a way. I'm retranslating back from writing into sound, and I invite you to listen with the heart. Thus have I heard. At one time, the Blessed One, while wandering in the Kosala country with a large community of monks, entered a town of the Kalama people called Kesaputta. The Kalamas, who were inhabitants of Kesaputta, said, Reverend Gautama, the monk, the son of the Sakyans, has, while wandering in the Kosala country, entered Kesaputta. The good repute of the Reverend Gautama has been spread in this way. Indeed, the Blessed One is thus consummate, fully enlightened, endowed with knowledge and practice, sublime, knower of the worlds, peerless, guide of untamable people, teacher of divine and human beings, which he by himself has through direct knowledge understood clearly. He set forth the Dharma, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, possessed of meaning and the letter, the complete in everything, and he proclaims the holy life that is perfectly pure. Seeing such consummate ones is good indeed. It's kind of flowery language, and this is simplified. Then, the Kalamas, who were inhabitants of Kesaputta, went to where the Blessed One was, and on arriving there paid homage to him and sat down on one side. Some exchanged greetings with him, and after the ending of cordial, memorable talk, sat down on one side. Some saluted him, raising their joined palms, and sat down on one side. Some announced their name and family and sat down on one side, and some, without speaking, sat down on one side. The Kalamas, who were inhabitants of Kesaputta, sitting to one side, said to the Blessed One, There are some monks and Brahmins, wandering teachers, Venerable Sir, who visit Kesaputta. They expound and explain only their own doctrines. The doctrines of others they despise, revile, and pull to pieces. Some other monks and Brahmins too, Venerable Sir, come to Kesaputta. They also expound and explain only their own doctrines. The doctrines of others they despise, revile, and pull to pieces. Venerable Sir, there is doubt. There is uncertainty in us concerning them. Which of these reverend monks and Brahmins, wandering teachers, spoke the truth? And which is falsehood? They need fact checkers. The criterion for rejection. It is proper for you, O Kalamas, to doubt, to be uncertain. Uncertainty has arisen in you about what is doubtful. Come, Kalamas, do not go upon what has been acquired by repeated hearing, nor upon tradition, nor upon rumor, nor upon what is in a scripture, nor upon surmise, nor upon an axiom, nor upon specious reasoning, nor upon a bias toward a notion that has long been pondered over, nor upon another's seeming ability, nor upon the consideration, this monk is our teacher. Kalamas, that's a lot, isn't it? Want to hear it again? We'll repeat, actually. Kalamas, when you yourselves know these things are bad and these things are blamable, these things are censured by the wise, undertaken and observed, these things lead to harm and ill, then abandon them. What do you think, Kalamas? Does greed appear in a person for their benefit or harm? For their harm, Venerable Sir. Kalamas, being given to greed and being overwhelmed and vanquished mentally by greed, this person takes life, steals, commits adultery, and tells lies. They prompt another too to do like side. Will that be long for their harm and ill? Yes, Venerable Sir. What do you think, Kalamas? Does hate appear in a person for their benefit or their harm? For their harm, Venerable Sir. Kalamas, being given to hate and being overwhelmed and vanquished mentally by hate, this person takes life, steals, commits adultery, and tells lies, prompts another too to do likewise. Will that be long for their harm and ill? Why, yes, Venerable Sir. Greed, hatred, and delusion. What do you think, Kalamas? Does delusion appear in a person for their benefit or harm? For their harm, Venerable Sir. Being given to delusion and being overwhelmed and vanquished mentally by delusion, this person takes life, steals, commits adultery, and tells lies, prompts another too to do likewise. Will that be long for their harm and ill? Yes. Therefore, did we say, Kalamas, what was said thus? Come, Kalamas, do not go upon what has been acquired by repeated hearing, nor upon tradition, nor upon rumor, nor upon what is in scripture, nor upon surmise, nor what you find on the internet, nor upon an axiom, nor upon specious reasoning. It must be true, it's on the net. Nor upon another's seeming ability, nor upon the consideration, this monk is our teacher. Kalamas, when you yourselves know these things are bad, these things are blamable, these things are censured by the wise, undertaken and observed, these things lead to harm and ill, then abandon them. The criteria for acceptance. Come, Kalamas, do not go what has been acquired by repeated hearing, nor upon tradition, nor upon rumor, nor upon what is in scripture, nor upon surmise, nor upon an axiom, nor upon specious reasoning, nor upon a bias towards a notion that has been pondered over, nor upon another's seeming ability, nor upon charisma, nor upon consideration, this monk is our teacher. When you yourself know these are good things, these are not blamable, these are praised by the wise, undertaken and observed. These things lead to benefit and happiness. Enter into and abide upon them. And then he goes on with, does the absence of greed help? Does it lead to a person not acting in those unskillful ways? Does the absence of hatred, does the absence of ignorance? What do you think? Kalamas, are these things good or bad? Blamable or not blamable? Not blamable, Venerable Sir. Censured or praised by the wise? Praised. undertaken and observed, do these things lead to happiness and benefit of all, etc.? So then he repeats again, these repetitions are quite potent. Do you go by what is in the scripture? Do you take the book and say, this is what the Buddha said, and if you don't believe me, I'll have to kill you? Or, there's lots of that in the world, right? If you don't believe in my ideology, you're not quite a human being. Let's just do one more piece of this directly from here. Does it lead to the reduction of greed, hatred, and delusion? And from that, does it lead to the reduction of harmful behavior? The 5 precepts: killing, stealing, intoxicating ourselves, acting sexually that cause harm, and using speech that causes harm. I'll come back. So the disciple of the noble ones, Kalamas, who in this way is devoid of coveting, devoid of ill will, undiluted, clearly comprehending and mindful, dwells, having pervaded with the thought of amity, of love and friendliness, to 1 quarter, likewise the second, likewise the third, and so above, below, and across. There's an encouragement to practice love to the east, the west, the north, and the south, in all directions. To practice compassion, to practice sympathetic joy, to practice equanimity, to live one's life with an intention of skillfully living with other people. And then that's enough. So, back to number 4. This sutra is often used. There's actually a very good article about this on Access to Insight. This sutra is used to justify, I can really do whatever I want, as long as I make the decision that it's okay. And if you listen carefully, I got to go back. If you listen carefully, there's a lot of checks and balances in this. What do you think? Are these things good or evil? So and so and so. Is this activity censured or praised by the wise? This is a movement to what's the word? To honoring the tradition, but also to honoring our elders, our spiritual elders, our psychological and emotional elders, that when we're confused, we actually check with our community and we talk about what it is that we're doing and how our practice is going, so that we don't get lost in a narrow-minded little place like I did in that cult. We did so many very unskillful things in that group. In my marketing of him, one time that I got caught, I was at Stanford. I was talking I had an appointment with a fellow in the, I forget what department, psychology department, and one of the standard lines was that he's taught at various universities. And this professor very sensibly said, well, which ones? I didn't know. But I was saying that he had taught at universities, and I didn't know that. But I did know that he was right. And I did know that he had the truth. And he did have the Dharma, which was more truth than I'd ever seen in my life. And the embarrassment that came up in that phone call, and then the guy said, well, thanks, we're not interested. But what came up next? Anger, right? Make him wrong for something that was really not skillful that I was doing. And then I went back to the group, and then the group supported me in my anger and making him wrong. And this is a way that we lost track because we were insulated. One of the main criteria with cults is a milieu control. You control who you talk to, who people talk to. Because if you get outside and you talk with others about, especially wise people, they might say, gosh, that sounds rather unethical what you're doing. Right? You're marketing that fellow through lies. Let me see, do you have any questions about this? There's a couple more things I want to say, but I'll do them at the end. Does it make sense? This is a piece I'm trying to get to. If you've been around long, you've heard me say that I really believe that this practice is the scientific method. This is a method, this is a strategy of practice that involves creating an experiment. The classic one is, one of the central teachings, everything is impermanent. Is that true? Now in thinking, there's lots of things that are permanent. We can have that fantasy. But when it comes down to what we experience through the sense doors, is it true? And if I carry out that experiment, it begins to percolate more and more and more into life, that it really is correct that everything's impermanent. A second huge hypothesis, one of the three characteristics of existence, that nothing is really quite satisfactory. This is a very un-American thing. It's an unmodern thing to say. That if we could just have that new, there's a new iPhone. Yes, better camera, right? Better camera. I know that if I could have that, I'd be happier. True or not true? No, you think not? With your tech background, I'll. So, but how many of those promises that if I just got this, everything would be okay? I would say everyone in this room is enthralled with something of that ilk right now. If I could just get this together, if I could just get, or if this wouldn't happen, and so we're bargaining. And this scientific method says, turn on mindfulness and concentration, really observe with a question mark. Also, the descending teaching says the same thing. Oh, asterisk, can I remember to come back? Let's try. 30 years ago, the Thai government wanted to create a consumer economy in Thailand. It was not. They went to the monks, big hierarchy, Thailand. They went to the monks and asked them, would they please stop teaching contentment? And that you can't get satisfied by, and Robert Bly put it, you can never get enough of what you don't really want, to put it over at the entrance to the mall. They asked them to stop teaching that, and they refused. They succeeded in creating a market economy in Thailand, of course. It's a powerful industrial state. But that was interesting. So for ourselves, the asterisk, is it true that in the words of Ruth Denison, Dalink, there really is always a leak in the canoe? In the most extraordinary experiences, there's always something not quite right, and it's over. It's over, and then I want it again. So lasting satisfaction is, the Buddha says, not possible through the sense doors. Is that true? Then we're thrown into with the Kalamas. The Kalamas, we could take that as kind of a creed. It's true. There's no lasting satisfaction. Support that with my depressive neurosis. And, I did that a lot at the beginning. Or might we take it, all right, the teachings say this, I'm hearing this from the teachers. Is this true in my direct experience? Can I buy something, have something, experience something, that if I just had this, if my partner were just like this, or just not like this, then, or if my boss were just like this, or just not like, or if the weather were just, it goes on and on. And I invite you to notice where you're doing that bargaining. And then to apply the method, which is, so, what if I really become aware of that? And I notice the suffering that's being caused by that. And I'm noticing the demand in that. What happens? And I like the little experiment we did. Well, we did several already today, but at the very beginning, or in the middle, when I asked, did this few minutes of practice, did it result in a more pleasant, wholesome mental state? That's a pretty remarkable thing to notice. You didn't have to believe anything to do that. You didn't have to subscribe to an ideology. You didn't have to sign up or anything. But you did sit here and you did do something pretty important, which was to pay attention. So, does paying attention to what's happening in the mind result in, does it conduce toward my happiness, the happiness of my loved ones, and the happiness of all beings? So, question, comment, complaint. I'm going to ask you to use the mic so that everybody can hear. I know one more thing. When I first heard this, the Kalamas the teaching of the Kalamas, it was such a relief to me. It's not so shocking here in this room, of course, but to realize, to learn, to be told by the teacher, a very, very prestigious teacher, Goenkaji, I didn't have to believe any of his talks. Oh, I missed a very important piece. Since there's no questions, let me see if I can find it. Oh, yeah. Ha, ha, ha. Good. The four solaces. The disciple of the noble ones, Kalamas, who has such a hate-free mind, such a malice-free mind, such an undefiled mind, and such a purified mind, is one whom the four solaces are found here and now. Suppose there is a hereafter. Suppose there is rebirth. How many of you believe in rebirth, if you're willing to say? How many don't believe in rebirth? How many don't really have an opinion? More. It's a group of agnostics, okay? Suppose there is a hereafter and there is a fruit result of deeds done ill or well, then it is possible that the dissolution of the body after death, I shall arise in the heavenly world, which is possessed of the state of bliss. This is the first solace found in this person. If you're behaving skillfully, reducing hatred and so on, then you'll get born in heaven. Suppose there is no hereafter, and there's no fruit, no result, or deeds well done, yet in this world, here and now, free from hatred, free from malice, free and sound and happy, I keep myself. This is the second solace. Ram Dass said something very similar. I'm faced with a circumstance in my life, and I can act skillfully or not. I can act with love, or I can act with hatred. I can act with greed, or I can act with generosity. Well, since I want a good rebirth, and I subscribe to the belief of the next life, then I'm going to behave really well because I want to be born in a good place. Well, since I'm really certain that my actions in this moment condition the next moment, and that I can test that very easily, then I think I'm going to act well when I get the choice. I'm going to act well because I really would like to feel better tomorrow. As Ram Dass put it, whatever the case, I should eat what's on my plate. I should behave myself because the fruits of karma are true now and tomorrow, and if there is a future life, then there is a future life. Suppose evil results befall an evildoer. I, however, think of doing evil to no one, then I'm not going to go there. So, questions? Questions? Not all at once, please. Yes, please. Oh, use this, please. Otherwise, people won't hear you. Thanks.
I was curious about something back when you were reading the sutra.
Yeah.
When you read over when you were reading the part that said, does your own experience tell you that these things are bad in these ways? And then that was followed by the, does your own experience tell you that these things are good in these ways? You read the bad part in, like, word for word in detail, and it seemed, maybe I misheard, but it seemed like you used the word etc. and kind of skimmed over the good part, and I'm curious what the words are in the sutra there.
Egads. Let me see. The good part? Uh-huh. So if we're good campers, here, I think I can find what you mean. I did. So there's the criteria for rejection, and then there's the criteria for acceptance. So, see if this is where you meant. Come, Kalamas, do not go upon what has been acquired by repeated healing, nor upon tradition, nor upon rumor, nor upon what is in Scripture, nor upon surmise, nor upon an axiom, nor upon specious reasoning, nor upon a bias toward a notion that has been pondered over, nor upon another seeming ability, nor upon consideration. This monk is our teacher. Kalamas, when you yourselves know these things are good, these things are not blamable, these things are praised by the wise, undertaken and observed, these things lead to benefit and happiness, enter into and abide on them. And this is where I slurred over it. When do you think, Kalamas, does absence of greed appear for a person for their benefit or harm? For their benefit, Venerable Sir. Kalamas, not being given to greed and not being overwhelmed and not vanquished mentally by greed, this person does not take life, does not steal, does not commit adultery, and does not tell lies. They prompt another too to do likewise. Will that belong for the benefit and happiness? Yes. Is that the spot?
I think so. Thank you.
That was hurrying. I hurried, and it does the same there for greed, hatred, and for delusion.
I was in a religious cult, and it started, the first indoctrination was a statement like that, like it was scientific, and all you had to do was see if it was true for you. And the more I got into it, the more that was the actuality was that wasn't used at all. So, as a person got into it more, they would lose sight of the fact and it went more on belief and other things. And I guess what's important to me is you can state something, but it's just words. You know, it's just words, kind of like the doublespeak, in 1984. I mean, it was very frightening, the process that happened.
Yeah.
As I got more and more into it, and then to come back to it, and because he had stolen things from Buddhism and psychology and all this sort of thing, some of the things that I heard as I got interested in Buddhism, I thought, oh, I've heard that before. And I guess it's just words are words. What the actuality is, keeping observation, seeing for yourself. And as you were saying, the wise people and this and that. But I guess I'm just saying that it's easy just to state something, but there's got to be that follow-up of really seeing what's there, if that makes any sense.
Oh, that makes so much sense. And I'm going to put a little plug in for one of my great heroes in this lifetime, a man named Robert Lifton. And he was the first person to study the Hiroshima survivors. He studied the American soldiers who were in the brainwashing camps in China from Korea. He studied the German physicians who did experiments on living humans in the Third Reich. He was on Patty Hearst's defense team, and he's probably he's the person who developed a way of thinking about cult process from his work with the American soldiers who'd come out of the brainwashing camps. And there's something called Robert Lifton's 8 points. And his 8 points, when I experienced my deprogramming to get out of the cult, I'd been out for some months and I was in psychotherapy, but psychotherapy doesn't touch cult process, unfortunately. But I was given chapter 22 of Ideological Totalism, Robert Lifton's book, and it blew my socks off because there's these 8 things, and I can't remember them right off, but there's these 8 practices of mind control groups. Among them is milieu control. By walking out of here today and going back to your families and your world, you're breaking the first rule. Because we can't control your mind if you can go out and be exposed to lots of different things. Another is the dispensation of existence. If this teaching we're saying, if you don't follow this teaching, you're going to hell. You're going to be lost. Mystical loading, I'm forgetting right now, but I highly encourage you, if you have any interest in cult process, to read Robert Lifton's 8 points. Of course, you look them up on the net and they're very simple to get at. But yes, the cult process does not have to do with the ideology. Hence, my guru Sujata could create a cult around Buddhism. And he had it 95% correct, the teachings. His teaching was overly focused on concentration and repression. So you can have, and there are religious cults in the name of every tradition, because narcissistic people manage to be charismatic, and we as humans are so hungry for the truth. We're so hungry for some relief. And we can get some relief by meeting someone charismatic and believing in them. But then the problem is that, and I strongly, with that movie, what did I say, Living Hell or Holy Hell? It's very well done. The fellow who did it was a videographer, and he was brought into the group in order to videotape, to create a record of the group. So when he slipped out of the group, he had thousands of hours of recordings to work with. It's very interesting. So, and I know we've talked about your carefulness as you tiptoed into PIMC, and is it is there deception happening? Another one that I really like. This isn't from Lifton, but if the leader can laugh at themselves, and if we can laugh at the teachings, there's some inoculation happening there that we're not really true believers. We're not desperate for it to be all true. Thank you. Very important sharing. We have another 2 minutes. So anything else? Oh, Jim.
This is not going to take 2 minutes, but because it's going to take longer. When you did the replay for the question that started,
Yeah.
you went over a section that was the feedback, the balancing. What are the questions you carry with you to avoid the beliefs? That one section before you went into the positive side, you said there's a feedback system, including, oh, I'm getting all jacked
Including
up.
speaking with the elders or...
Yeah. If you could just take that section and put it on the listserv, I would love to go through that again slowly, which we don't have time for today.
Great.
But that, you went through one of them in detail, but then I think there were 5.
Yeah. I will do that.
Okay.
Please.
So, from your experience, I'm wondering what is the questions? Right now, in today's world, so many of us are looking for a different way to live. And one of the things that's growing is conscious community, intentional communities, spiritual communities. I love the idea of that, of jumping way out of the box.
Uh-huh.
But that can easily get into group think stuff.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest is the main safeguard? I mean, to ask yourself, is this true?
Yeah.
You have to have a deep trust in your ability, your stuff, which almost is tautological to me.
Yeah.
Which almost means I have to be enlightened before I can ask the question whether I get, you know what I mean?
We're all vulnerable.
Yeah.
Look at what's happening politically. We're very vulnerable. You poke our fear and we jump into things. So I think knowing Lifton's 8 points is important. And also always keep, this is a big question, but always keep one toe outside the group or one foot. That don't become a monoculture. Don't become... be sure to get feedback from friends, and I'm doing this, and this is how it is, and being willing to listen. I know one of the deals that I have with the next generation teachers, and we all share this, is that I'll do it for myself. If they see me going off the deep end in some way and doing something that's really not skillful, I have deputized them to say, we need to look at this. Because I could be falling into a blind spot, and have. And so that's really, having good friends who are not part of the group. Maintaining a kind of normal life is very important. So, but we're all vulnerable. I've also asked my beloved friends to help me stop teaching when it's time. Maybe now. No, stop! But I meant with my teacher Ruth, in my view, it would have been good if she'd stopped teaching a few years earlier, because she was losing it and she needed to stop. So, is that any help?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, no. It has to be super quick because we have wild animals in the chute.
Real quick. And it's going to maybe come across more antagonistic than I mean it. But you said that your guru was like maybe 95% on.
Yeah.
What percent on are you?
Oh. It's a good question. You know what's really interesting about that? I'm interested in the answer, and it's not embarrassing. I hope I'm not too far off. Because we're taking some liberties. We're not doing the descending lineage, this is the way they did it in Burma. We're trying, this is an experiment. And so I hope we're not too far off. And if I am, I end retreats this way, but I'll do this here. If I've said something that was offensive to you or hurtful to you, tell me. And if I've taught something that leads someone astray and you discover it, come and tell me. Because I'm really just human. I think that's true about everybody, actually. All of our teachers are just human. And so, thank you. It was fun. Let's bring in the kids, and please make a big circle. And potluck, and let's go on. Oh, I knew that. Dang. Nope. No.
I'm the singer. I'm the singer too.
Oh, here she comes. Welcome back, Monica. Yay. Well, did you have fun? What was the best part?
The best part was when I played outside with my friends.
I see.
Vocal time.
Nobody says the guitar, the music, no?
Vocal time. That's pretty much.
The music. Oh, good.
That's
Phew.
it.
All right.
I
All right.
didn't listen to the music because I wasn't even there.
Okay. That's all dance. Speaking of narcissism. Oh, dear. So, let's give these hands a little squeeze. It's so nice that we get to hold hands with each other and touch, to see one another. So we can think lots of things. Why not think a nice, kind thought for the person who's on your right hand? And then the person on the left, the other side. Time's up. Yep. So, let's have a song. Who's going to sing?
I will.
All right. You want to share? May all beings be happy. Remember? 3 times. And then
Can't.
1, 2, go.
May all please be happy. May all please be happy. May all please be happy.
Sadhu.
Sadhu.
Sadhu. Yay, well done. And now, everything which has a beginning has an ending. So this candle was lit a couple of hours ago, and now in just a few moments it will disappear. So make a wish. Everybody in the room gets to make a wish, a prayer, a longing, an intention, and then I'm going to count, and then you'll blow out the candle. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, blow. Yay, very nicely done. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your presence and practice, and please come and join us for a little bit of potluck. Thank you, those of you that joined us on the net.